Hey, Gospel Guitarist here, and today I'm going to do a simple task of replacing the nut on my old trusty G-Series Takamine Acoustic, which I believe just has a plastic nut on it. So what you're going to need for a little job like this is, I'm going with a Graphtec nut. I had it in my spare parts kit, and I measured it up against this nut on my guitar, and it seems to be a good fit. So I'm going to go ahead and replace it with this. But you're going to want to take measurements if you set out to do a task of replacing your nut. It's a delicate task and you can't afford to mess this up. Everything is pretty precise at the nut, and it can make or break how your guitar plays. So you're going to want to measure how high your nut is, the thickness of the nut from front to back, and how high your strings are over your frets is going to determine how the nut that's on the guitar is cut. So if you're going to cut your own nut, you need to know how high it is now. And if it's too low, you can cut it not as deep. If it's too deep, then you need to cut it more shallow. So if you're getting a lot of buzzing at the first fret, things like that, then your nut is wearing out and your strings are setting too close to the nut, to the first fret, causing it to buzz. So let's get started. This is basically it. You need a little tiny hammer and maybe a little block of wood or something to cushion the blow when you remove the nut. So the first step is to get the strings loose. Okay, now that the strings are loose and moved out of the way, you don't necessarily have to remove the strings for this operation. If you want to, fine, dress up your neck or whatever. Okay, you're going to need an X-Acto knife or a razor blade of your choice. What I'd suggest doing so that you don't chip any of your finish around the nut where it attaches to the guitar is if you just take your knife or a razor blade and do a little scoring. You don't have to push very hard. It's just if they got any finish on that nut, when you go to knock this nut off, it's going to take your paint with it. I scored up here as well because I don't want any of the wood chipping off of my fretboard or off of my binding. So I just kind of push a little bit there, and then I run across the front. So now I'm ready to just tap it ever so lightly. Okay, got me a little block of wood here and a hammer so that I can get a rather even force. Popped it right off. Nice and clean. The bottom is completely clean, no wood at all, but it is definitely plastic. It's got the telltale 2 holes in the molding routine going on there. So if you want, you can, this one came off very nice and super clean. So I want to just, if it didn't come out very clean, you're going to want to clean this up before you install your new nut. And for me, I'm going to check the fit, and it's just perfect. My new nut's going to fit on there just perfect. So all I need to do is put a little glue of your choice on there and it doesn't take much. You know, if you use Tite Bond or super glue, whatever you want to use, just put a couple drops on the bottom and let it sit there for a minute. So before you glue this in place, you want to measure it up against the old nut. If you like the old nut and it's fine as far as height, you want to compare the 2 nuts and make sure that the heights are identical, or you're going to have to file one down. Now mine here is identical, which is nice because that means I do not have to take this to a disc sander now and take off, you know, a micron or something. So you want to make sure that you get your measurements correct. You can always order another nut if you mess them up. It might take you a couple tries to get this right. It's very easy to cut a slot too deep or to get the height or the width. The thickness of the nut is not as big of a deal. On the bottom here, the thickness of the nut when it comes to the bottom here. But the height and the width on your fretboard, that part is important. So you're not going to want to feel the edge of the nut up here, and you don't want it cut it off so much that it's recessed inside of your slot. You want to get that nice and looking really nice. It's not a real hard complication to do. You can order these nuts. This one came from GravTech. I highly recommend GravTech nuts. I have them on almost every guitar I own, and I highly just recommend them. They're not very expensive. So let's get this installed. Me, I'm just going to put a couple drops of the good old trusty super glue. Hold it in place for a couple seconds. Make sure you don't get any super glue on your finish. You could put tape across this part of your neck right here on your headstock if you're really worried about that. That goes for the sides and everywhere around here. You could always tape that off just to make sure you don't chip anything. That's basically it for this job here. I just put the strings back up, tighten it up, and she's good to go. Thanks for watching. Just a real quick tip on how to change a nut on your acoustic. Hope it helped take away any fear of doing it. Like I say, the biggest challenge is just making the nut correct for your guitar, because they come very close. You can order by type of guitar and different types of nuts to fit your guitar. So just do your research, measure your nut before you go online so you know what the dimensions of your nut are, as far as the width and the height and the thickness of the nut. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you found it helpful, and check out some more of my other videos. Have a good day now.